I'm Amelia, 34 years old, and for most of my adult life I thought generosity was the glue that held my family together. I believed that showing up, financially, emotionally, practically, was what good daughters and good sisters did. But the truth hit me on an ordinary afternoon, sharper than I could have imagined, and it hit me somewhere I didn't expect. At my nephew's 10th birthday party, while standing beside a rented bounce house and a table full of cupcakes I paid for. For years I had been the reliable one, the capable one. The person everyone called when tires went flat, when bills piled up, when someone's hours got cut, or when life tilted sideways. My success as a senior software engineer was a point of pride for me, something I worked tirelessly for. Late nights, sacrificed weekends, promotions earned with exhaustion instead of luck. But in my family's eyes, somewhere along the way, my success became less a personal victory and more a lifetime subscription to their emergencies. It didn't begin maliciously. First it was small. $100 here, $200 there. My younger sister, Chloe, always had a crisis just around the corner. She and her husband, Mark, lived permanently one paycheck behind, forever chasing stability but never quite catching it. When their son, Leo, needed something, I stepped in with no hesitation. How could I not? He was the bright spot in our messy family. Helping felt right. But small favors have a way of becoming expectations when no one draws a line. The first time I felt that quiet sting of being taken for granted was years ago. Mark called in a panic about their car. The transmission had died, meaning he couldn't get to work and Chloe couldn't get Leo to his appointments. His voice cracked just enough to trigger every soft spot I had. Without thinking, I wired the money. I told myself it was love. Family. The kind of thing people do for each other. 2 weeks later, I found out the transmission had indeed been fixed. And there had also been enough left over to buy shiny chrome rims. When I asked Chloe about it, she told me it was for morale. As if morale was the emergency I thought I was funding. I swallowed the irritation. My mother's favorite line echoed in my head, the one she'd repeated throughout our childhood whenever conflict arose. Just let it go, Amelia. It's not worth making a scene. And so I let it go. But that was only the beginning of a pattern that got harder to ignore. Soon rent shortages appeared. Grocery shortages. Utility shortages. Chloe always sounded frightened, overwhelmed, stretched thin. And every time she cried, I caved. I'd imagine Leo going without. Imagine them drowning in worry. And I transferred whatever they needed. Then, days after I sent them months of grocery money, they took a weekend vacation by the coast. Posting smiling photos, wine glasses raised, as if their lives were effortlessly charmed. As if none of it had come from my bank account. No mention of me. No gratitude. Not even honesty. It was the first time I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The first time I wondered if I wasn't helping but enabling. I ignored that feeling. I wish I hadn't. Because the real breaking point hadn't arrived yet. And when it did, it wouldn't just crack the surface. It would split the entire foundation apart. And that breaking point began the day they asked me to fund the one thing that should have never been my responsibility. Their son's future. The moment that pushed everything over the edge didn't arrive with shouting or drama. It arrived calmly, almost politely. Wrapped inside a glossy brochure for Northwood Prep, the kind of private school that boasted marble hallways, robotics labs, and swim teams with their own travel buses. Chloe and Mark invited me over one evening, claiming they just wanted to talk. I should have known better. Whenever they used that line, it meant they were prepping a pitch. Their living room was its usual mix of clutter and chaos, toys under the coffee table, unfolded laundry on the couch. But laid neatly on the center cushion was the brochure, pristine and shimmering under the lamplight as if it were a treasure map. Amelia, Chloe said, tapping the cover with a manicured fingernail. This is Leo's chance. He's too smart for the public school system. He needs a place that challenges him. Mark chimed in, leaning forward as if he were presenting a business proposal. This school opens doors. Ivy League level doors. We're talking life-changing opportunities. And the teacher said he's gifted, you know? It would be selfish not to give him this. I flipped through the pamphlet. The place looked impressive. Too impressive. The kind of impressive that cost $20,000 a year just to walk through the front gates. How are you planning to pay for this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Chloe exchanged a look with Mark, the look they always shared right before placing responsibility squarely on my shoulders. Mark cleared his throat. Well, that's why we wanted to talk to you. There it was. Not even softened. Not even masked with hesitation. We see it as an investment, Chloe continued. A family investment in Leo's future. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Investment. As if my wallet was a stock market they could deposit dreams into. As if I would earn dividends in the form of thank you notes and pride. But what truly tilted the scales wasn't their audacity. It was my mother. She called me almost daily once she learned about their plan. Her voice always sounded so soft, so pleading, so wrapped in motherly guilt that even I struggled to recognize it for what it was. Manipulation dressed up as concern. You have the means, Amelia, she said one evening, her voice hushed as if protecting a secret. Think of the opportunities Leo could have. You're in the best position to help. Isn't that what family is for? I was conditioned for years to believe being the successful one meant I owed them something, that having more meant I had to give more, that if I didn't sacrifice, I was selfish. And so, against my better judgment, I agreed. I paid for Leo's first year, then the second, quietly, invisibly, while Chloe and Mark boasted to friends and co-workers about their son's private school experience. They credited themselves for giving him an elite education. Meanwhile, I was the silent ghost in the background funding every step. And as the years went on, the weight grew heavier. Not because of the money, but because of the widening gap between what I gave and how they treated me. They began to resent me. Every kind gesture turned sour in their eyes. Every favor became something they felt entitled to. My generosity had become a rope tied around my neck, and they were pulling tighter with each passing year. And then came the day I organized Leo's 10th birthday. The day that shattered everything. The day Chloe said something so cutting, so casually cruel, that it froze me in place. A sentence that transformed everything. And it was at that birthday party, as the candles flickered on a cake I had paid for, that Chloe finally exposed exactly what she thought I was. The sun was merciless that afternoon, the kind of heat that seemed to press against your skin, daring you to complain. I had rented a shaded picnic area at a local park for Leo's 10th birthday, complete with a castle-shaped bounce house, a face painter, themed decorations, and a custom superhero cake. Every detail was perfect, arranged with a kind of precision only an over-functioning ant would obsess over. But the truth was, the joy I had expected to feel never arrived. Instead, something heavier gnawed inside me. It wasn't regret, just a dull exhaustion. The same kind of emptiness that comes from running a marathon you didn't sign up for. Chloe swept into the space like she was directing an event staff instead of two people who volunteered to help. She pointed at the gift table. A little more to the left, Mark. The lighting is better for photos. Then she turned to me with a tight, stretched smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's all coming together. Thanks to you, of course. I just didn't have the time to organize this myself. Work has been insane. I forced a smile. It's for Leo. I wanted him to have a great day. She leaned closer, voice low enough for only me to hear. Must be convenient being able to throw money at everything. Some of us don't have that luxury. Her words hit like a needle, small but sharp enough to break skin. I stood there, stunned into silence, as she walked away to greet guests. Mark approached moments later, clapping my shoulder with a grip far more familiar than appropriate. Don't mind her, Ames. She's stressed. You know how Chloe gets. He smiled, the kind of smile that coated dishonesty with friendliness. Really, this is amazing. Leo's gonna flip. Their gratitude was always hollow. Compliments with no weight. Recognition that dissolved the moment they needed something else. I spent the next hour playing hostess, handing out juice boxes, wiping faces smeared with paint, and watching kids launch themselves into the bounce house like missiles. Leo ran to me at one point, face painted like a tiger, arms flung wide. Auntie Amelia, this is the best birthday ever. His joy softened me, almost enough to forget everything else. Almost. But then it was time for cake. The kids gathered around chanting, the candles flickering, the parents smiling politely. Chloe took command of the knife as if she were slicing through a royal wedding cake. She served the children first, then the adults, then finally approached me. She held out a plate with a noticeably smaller slice. But it wasn't the size that mattered. It was the expression on her face. Something sharp. Something triumphant. As she extended the plate toward me, she leaned in and spoke through a too sweet smile. Her voice cutting clean through the noise around us. Here you go. And by the way, buying things doesn't make you special. You're just the family wallet. The world didn't stop, but it felt like I did. Her words were so direct, so intentional, that for a moment my mind refused to process them. I searched her eyes for humor, sarcasm, anything, but there was only ice, cold satisfaction. From the corner of my vision I saw Mark watching. He wasn't shocked. In fact, he let out a short laugh, a casual, cruel puff of air that made my stomach twist. I looked toward my mother. She had heard it too. Her eyes darted away, and with a weary sigh she murmured the same 4 words she had repeated my entire life. Just let it go. But this time something inside me snapped cleanly, not in anger but in clarity. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being used. And suddenly, I knew with terrifying certainty what I had to do next. Because what Chloe didn't realize was that her words didn't just insult me. They triggered a decision that would rewrite the entire future of our family. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't slam anything or storm off. Instead, a quiet calm settled over me, the kind that feels almost unnatural, like the air before a thunderstorm breaks open the sky. I gently lowered my hand, refusing the slice of cake. "No, thank you," I said, my voice steady and frighteningly composed. Chloe blinked, startled by my lack of reaction. Mark's smirk faded. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Something in the atmosphere shifted. A tiny tremor that only I seemed to recognize for what it was. The beginning of an end. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the gift table. There, among the wrapped presents and crumpled tissue paper, was the white envelope I had brought, the one containing a birthday card and a check for the remaining activity fees for Leo's upcoming school year. A check that symbolized not just money, but the financial lifeline I had been providing for years. Picked it up slowly, purposefully. Chloe's forced smile trembled. Mark straightened, sensing something slipping out of his control. My mother's eyes widened, dread replacing indifference. I held up the envelope so they could all see it. "Good luck covering next semester," I said quietly. "I just canceled the tuition payment." Silence fell so heavily it felt physical. Mark's smug expression collapsed. Chloe's face drained of color, her mouth opening in a silent, horrified gasp. My mother whispered my name like a warning, her voice trembling, but I didn't give any of them time to respond. I turned and walked away. The party sounds dulled behind me. Laughter, squealing children, the hum of conversation, fading into the background like a radio being switched off. With every step, my heartbeat steadied. My breaths deepened. My mind cleared. It felt like walking out of a fog I didn't know I'd been trapped in. I had almost reached the parking lot when I heard frantic footsteps pounding across the grass. "Amelia! Amelia, wait!" I didn't turn. Not until Mark grabbed my arm, breathless and desperate. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted, his voice raw with panic. "Are you insane?" I stared down at his hand on my arm, then met his eyes with a coldness I didn't know I was capable of. "Let go." He dropped my arm instantly, but he moved to block my path. "You're not serious about canceling the payment," he said, voice pitching high. "You can't do that. You can't. Watch me." His face twisted between anger and fear. All because of what Chloe said. She didn't mean it. She was stressed. "She meant every word," I replied. "And so did you when you laughed." "That wasn't. This is overreacting. Leo's school depends on that money. His future depends on it. Then you should have respected the person paying for it." He raked a hand through his hair, frustration mounting. "We don't have $20,000 lying around, Amelia. That sounds like a problem you two should have thought about before calling me a wallet." He followed me as I reached for my car door. "You're tearing this family apart." I paused, looking back at him over my shoulder. "No," I said softly. "I'm just refusing to be the glue holding together a family that only shows up with open hands." He didn't know what to say to that. His mouth opened then closed. The panic in his eyes told me everything. He wasn't fighting for family, he was fighting for financial security. The security I had been providing. I got into my car and shut the door. His hands hit the window, but his words were muffled, lost to the outside world. For the first time in years, the silence inside my car felt like freedom. I drove away without looking back. But the real confrontation, the one I dreaded the most, wasn't with Chloe or Mark. It was waiting for me at home. Because when I got back, my phone exploded with calls, and the voice on the other end would be the one I never expected to break me. When I walked through my front door that evening, I expected exhaustion, maybe a headache, Maybe the hollow feeling that comes after a difficult confrontation. What I didn't expect was the tidal wave that waited for me the moment my phone reconnected to Wi-Fi. It began buzzing before I could even set down my keys. First Chloe, then Mark, then Chloe again. Then a stream of text messages so rapid my screen looked like it was glitching. I ignored every call. But the texts forced themselves onto my screen like flashing warnings. Where are you? You can't just walk out like that. Leo is devastated. He's crying because of you. You ruined his birthday. Not a single message acknowledged what she said. Not a single word of accountability. Just blame. I tossed my phone on the couch and went into the kitchen for water, trying to calm the adrenaline still buzzing inside my veins. My hands were trembling slightly, not from regret, but from the sudden awareness of how deeply their voices had burrowed into my nervous system. The phone rang again. This time it wasn't Chloe. It wasn't Mark. It was my mother. I shouldn't have answered. But years of conditioning picked up before logic could intervene. Amelia. Her voice was already tight, already laced with disappointment. No greeting, no concern, just accusation. Hi, Mom, I said flatly. What have you done? She demanded. Not are you okay, not I heard something happen, not a single question about how I felt. Just blame. I exhaled slowly. I finally stood up for myself. By humiliating your sister, she shot back. By taking away Leo's education. Amelia, this isn't strength. This is cruelty. There it was again, the narrative they'd all agreed on within hours. I was the villain, the destroyer of peace, the scapegoat. He'll be crushed when he finds out, she continued, voice trembling with practiced sorrow. His parents are beside themselves. You've torn this family apart. My fingernails pressed into my palm, grounding me, keeping me from yelling. This family tore itself apart long before today, I said quietly. I just stopped pretending everything was fine. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. She exhaled sharply, as if I were the unreasonable one. You have so much, Amelia. They have so little. Is it really so terrible to help them? It's terrible that you think my value is tied to what I can give, I said. It's terrible that you let them treat me like a walking ATM. It's terrible that whenever something hurts me, you tell me to let it go so no one else gets uncomfortable. Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't reflective silence. It was offended silence. The kind where someone refuses to see their part in anything. You need to fix this, she finally said. Call Chloe. Apologize. Tell her you're reinstating the school payment. We can still salvage this. I felt something inside me, a small tired thread, finally snap. No. Her voice cracked. Amelia. No, I repeated. I'm done. I'm done funding everyone's life. I'm done being the villain when I finally say no. I'm done being the family's emotional and financial punching bag. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do, I said. And then quietly, I'm blocking all three of you. Her breath caught, not with heartbreak but with disbelief. You can't just cut off your family. Watch me. I pressed the red button before she could respond and blocked her number. Then Chloe's. Then Mark's. One by one the noise went silent. And with the silence came a rush of release. No joy. Not victory. Just release. For the first time in years my phone was quiet. For the first time in years I had space to breathe. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, and cried. Not for them but for myself. For all the years I spent thinking my worth came from sacrifice. For the little girl who learned early that peace mattered more than her feelings. For the woman who finally said enough. But the real reconstruction, the healing, was still ahead of me. And it wasn't until therapy forced me to confront the truth, a truth I didn't want to see, that I understood the full extent of what my family had turned me into. The silence after blocking my family was strange at first, not peaceful, not comforting, just foreign. Like walking into a house after the furniture has been removed. The walls were the same, but the space felt hollow. I didn't realize how much noise they'd filled my life with until it was suddenly gone. At the recommendation of a friend, I started therapy. I didn't know what I expected, but certainly not the blunt clarity of Dr. Evans, the therapist who didn't waste a second coddling my defenses. During our first session, after I poured out the entire story in fractured pieces, she leaned back with a thoughtful expression. Your family wasn't functioning as a family, she said simply. They were functioning as a system, one built around draining resources from you. And blinked. A system. A dysfunctional one, she clarified. You weren't a participant. You were the fuel. The moment you stopped fueling it, the system collapsed. And of course they blamed you. Because you stepping away revealed exactly how dependent they were. Her words hit harder than my family's insults ever had. System. Not love. Not reciprocity. Not normal. System. Over the next several weeks, therapy became a slow unraveling of knots I didn't even know I had. I learned how frequently I downplayed my own feelings out of fear of rejection. How easily I'd accepted the role of fixer. How rarely I asked for anything in return. How deeply I'd confused love with obligation. I had spent years holding up a family that never once asked if my arms were tired. And for the first time in my entire adult life, I finally allowed myself to wonder. Who could I be without the weight of everyone else's needs pressing on my chest? The answer came slowly, gently, like sunlight creeping in through a cracked curtain. I began exploring parts of myself I had long buried. I took a pottery class. My first act of creation that wasn't for someone else's benefit. My early pieces were crooked, uneven, charming only in their imperfection. I loved them anyway. They were mine. I booked a trip to Italy, something I'd always dreamed of but never felt allowed to do. Wandering through Rome, Florence, Venice, I felt anonymous in the best possible way. No one needed anything from me. No one expected anything. I could simply exist, and that felt like a luxury I had never known. When I returned, stronger and grounded in ways I couldn't articulate, I ran into a distant cousin at a farmer's market. She had heard the family's version of events, that I'd suddenly turned cold, that I abandoned them, that I'd punished Leo. I didn't defend myself. I didn't correct her. I didn't even get angry. Because therapy had given me a truth that no one could twist. I knew what really happened. And for the first time that was enough. Months passed without a single call, message, or attempt from Chloe, Mark, or my mother, until the day a cream-colored envelope appeared in my mailbox. My mother's handwriting. Familiar loops. Perfect spacing. Inside was a letter coated in familiar guilt and thinly veiled manipulation. But buried among the emotional debris was something I had never seen from her before. An apology. A fragile, almost frightened one. She admitted she had enabled the dynamic. Admitted she had silenced me for years, admitted she had chosen convenience over fairness. For a moment it shook me. For a moment I wondered if reconciliation was possible. But the letter ended the same way every request had ended my entire life. Please help them. They're struggling. They might lose the house. There it was. The truth beneath the apology. They weren't seeking healing. They were seeking funding. I wrote a response. A long, aching explanation of everything I'd held inside all these years, and then I folded it neatly, placed it in a box and didn't send it. That letter was for me, not for them. I never called. I never sent money. I never reopened the wound. Instead, I built a life that finally belonged to me. And now, months later, I sit here with a question that has echoed inside me since the day of the birthday party. The question I now offer to the world not in guilt, but in clarity. After years of being financially drained, emotionally dismissed, and treated as nothing more than a resource, was I wrong for finally saying no? So tell me, after everything, am I really the villain they say I am, or was this the only way to save myself?